This is 16 to 1, a podcast about education, teaching, and learning.
Hello.
Hey.
Howdy.
Hi.
How goes it?
I'm studying our notes so I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, good.
It's fine.
Good.
A wing and a prayer.
No, we got this. We researched.
I just mean my life.
Oh, your life. Yeah, well, in that case, no comment.
I'm sitting here in Christmas pants and
You are wearing Christmas pants. I do like
This
the Christmas
sweatshirt-
pants.
that my dad got at the beach I grew up going to, and it's probably older than I am.
My dad has one of those sweatshirts. It's also blue, but he still has this. He hasn't given it to me yet, and I told him that if he doesn't leave it to me in the will, then I'm going to have a real big
My
problem.
dad didn't leave this to me.
I know, you just took it, but I'm just
I
saying.
got cold one night after I got out of the pool, and I was like, yoink,
That's mine now.
and it's mine.
No, mine is my dad's got this it's a Big Sky sweatshirt. It's like this weird kind of sky bluish color. It's kind of lighter blue, which is kind of weird for him. Not necessarily in his usual
Yeah.
color palette.
Trying to
But it
imagine.
has holes everywhere and my mom hates it.
Oh, yeah.
Keeps threatening to throw it out. And Claire and I are like, "No, you cannot throw it out. That we're going to fight over that someday."
I don't know what year this is from, but the text starts in like
Yeah, I really like that.
my elbow area
Yes.
and goes clear across my chest to the other elbow.
Yeah, dude, it's like sort of like the Holden Beach is the name of it, and it goes from bicep to bicep.
It's just like a hug.
It's so weird.
It's a great sweatshirt.
I've never seen that before on a sweatshirt. To be
I know.
fair
I
to
don't
that
see my
sweatshirt.
dad ever being like, "This is a look I'm going for."
This is prime design choice
Anyway.
right here.
Uh,
It's
so
a
I
great
just
piece of
need-
clothing. Anyway,
I need maximum comfort,
yeah.
so I'm doing it all. I'm sitting in Christmas
Hey.
pants with a beach shirt on.
You do what you do.
How
to
are
take
you?
care of yourself. I'm good. I'm good.
You brought in a whole bottle of
I
scotch.
brought in the entire bottle. It has nothing to do with anything other than I'm just, it's
Prepping.
podcast time, and that's the same time as Scotch time right now.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm drinking this lovely Glenlivet 14 with the cognac cask finish, which is something that you got for me, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, and I drink Coors Light when I drink, so there's two types of us in this
Yeah.
room.
I know. I just want to say for our listeners that if you ever need a completely random Scotch recommendation from somebody who doesn't know anything about Scotch, Kate is really good at
Send
picking
me
out.
to Kroger.
Yeah, she's really good at picking out Scotches, and she doesn't know anything about Scotches. And I do know some stuff about Scotches, and she picks really well.
I pick based on color.
Which
This one was purple. The
mean,
box was really pretty.
It's just worked for you, whatever it is you're doing. Keep doing it.
The last one I like the color of as well. That's really all I have going for me. I read it and I'm like,
I'm just saying, listeners, whatever it is she does really
You're
well.
welcome.
So, yeah. Well, what are we talking about this week? Want to get straight into it?
We're talking about like one of my favorite things as a child.
Yeah.
Were you not a fan?
Oh, no, I loved this
Oh,
thing as a
okay.
child, too.
So Recess was your favorite thing too?
Recess. Yeah, I mean, I was a little nerdier about it, so I wouldn't admit to people, in other words, to my exactly zero friends, that Recess was my
Oh.
favorite, but of course it was my
Okay.
favorite. Yeah, no, I really was a fan. Yeah.
Well, we're trying to lighten it up. I needed some non-requiring work as far as the podcast goes. I wanted something to be like fun for me to think about and talk about.
Yeah.
So that's how we ended up here.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a quick aside. I had to call to cancel my old internet service today at the house that I'm leaving. And the guy was like he was very nice and said something. I was like, I can't take the service with me because you don't offer it in the area where I'm moving. And he's like, oh, that's too bad. And it was just something, he says something along the lines of like, oh, well, well, with the way 2020 is going, and I was just like,
I feel you.
yes, my guy. Yes, random person canceling my internet service. Yeah. So anyway, with the way 2020 is
It's a whole
going,
mood.
we thought that we needed some recess to lighten up the
Yes.
discussion. So we're taking one. No, just kidding. So we're talking about.
I could use one.
Yeah, we're just talking about recess today because it's fun.
Okay, tell me what it is.
What is recess? What do you mean, what is recess?
You have a definition.
Well,
You included the definition in the notes. I was going straight to tetherball, so this is on you.
I just like I like that it's not just a free-for-all playtime. Like, at least people who care about it in educational circles don't think of it as that. They think of it as a child's personal time that should not be withheld for academic or punitive reasons, which is
Often
very
done.
interesting, because I remember in elementary school we didn't get recess all the time because somebody acted up. But anyway,
Really?
so it's also like one of these sources is called a necessary break in the day for optimizing a child's social, emotional, physical, and cognitive development.
I could really use a recess based on this research.
Yeah, I doing this research, I was just like, adults should have recess. Adults should have recess. Adults should have recess. Which, I mean, you know, when we have some control over our lives and our schedules, which I do, but you as a teacher do not nearly as much as I do. You don't have sort of free-form breaks in your day in the way that I can, because I can just stop.
I don't even
Working.
bathroom breaks in my day.
Yeah, that's really upsetting to me to think about. Yeah, you like time your bodily functions because you don't have bathroom breaks, because you have to watch your kids. Kids can't be unattended,
No.
right?
For anything.
Yeah, that's really upsetting. So anyway, the point being, like, adults I think should have recesses too, because I mean, it would be nice if they could be social events like kids' recesses are, because it's really hard to just sit and crank
As I
out
yawn.
work. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I could use a recess or a nap break.
Well, I think
Sorry.
the thing to me is just like, especially maybe as an adult, I find myself not being able to focus for like extraordinarily long periods of time on just one thing and nothing. You know,
Yeah.
I don't do well without a mental break here and there.
Yeah, I could
So.
use a mental break.
So anyway, yeah, recess. We're talking about recess in sort of the primary school context.
Yeah. Well, I thought maybe we could just kind of talk about like what we both experienced,
Uh-huh.
like what recess was like, and then we'll kind of go into the history, and then we'll talk about the importance of it, obviously, and then even some recommendations and some states who have taken a stand to say that it should be a required thing for everyone.
Yeah.
So let me take you back to 1995.
Little baby Katie.
And I wrote it first on the notes. I was the tetherball
No,
queen.
I was definitely
Okay.
the tetherball queen.
If my
I'm
parents
sorry.
were here, they would tell you a very funny story. How I should have checked. I think I was in like first grade, and I got home, and my mom or one of them asked me how my day was, and all I could scream was that I'd like beaten a third grader at tetherball. That was like, big day. Yeah. Kickball,
Uh-huh.
big,
Uh-huh.
huge fan.
Mm-hmm.
Still would love some 4-corner kickball or just kickball. Would love it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I just was reminded of this is like we would go and collect like roly-polies. What are those bugs called?
Yeah,
Pill
we,
bugs.
we
They're
actually
pill
talked
bugs.
about this the other day.
Yeah.
Because I collected Lucky Rocks. They were a little light, like
What'd you say about friends?
they were light colored pebbles. I had no friends. I
had
collected them
rocks.
and gave them to the teacher because I had no friends.
You were that kid.
I'm not even kidding. I definitely did that.
But we would like go
She was
pick up.
very understanding.
What a sweet
She
woman.
said, at some point, I think she said, "Thank you. I don't need any more of these because look, I have so many."
I have a room full of rocks. Yeah, we would collect the roly-polies and try to like build them homes in our desks and like take like grass and
sweet.
stuff. They would all die. One of my most vivid memories is I think I was in second grade and a kid in my class broke both of his arms on the monkey bars. And he couldn't come to school for a long time, obviously, because you know you can't really do anything with yourself.
Yeah.
So what I remember, as far as like, because in the reading, in my research for this, there's a lot of like they should be guaranteed, like students should be given X amount of minutes, right? And so I was trying to think like what it was like for me. I went to half day kindergarten, so I think we had like one recess then. I remember we would go out a couple of times, like 1st through 4th grade. That was still our elementary, so that was pretty consistent, except for 1st through 4th grade had the wall. That's where you got sent if you were bad. You just stand there and watch everybody.
Uh-huh. But that's the thing that, right? You shouldn't withhold it for punitive reasons.
Yeah.
Because it's actually important to your development. Yeah.
We did go outside in 5th grade. I don't really remember it being every day though.
Mm-hmm.
And then like middle school was 6 through 8 at my school. And after lunch was done, like if we had time and we didn't want to sit there, we could go play basketball. But it wasn't like obviously built in. And then in high school, there was no recess.
Yeah, no
anywhere.
recess in high school. I kind of can't remember in middle school. I feel like we switched buildings because they built a new building like halfway through my middle school experience or whatever. And I feel like I maybe kind of remember going outside for the first part, maybe when I was in 5th grade, but maybe not once we moved to the new building. I'm not sure. But
Makes
I
sense.
definitely remember it in elementary school, all through elementary school. And I absolutely was the tetherball queen. So I'm very sorry
Anyways.
to tell you that things were not as you thought they were. But yeah. Foursquare was also another big thing at Maya. Yeah,
I love Foursquare.
We had a lot of fun with Foursquare. I remember doing dodgeball during some sort of indoor recess kind of stuff, which we absolutely
I keep thinking of
loved.
gym class and
Yeah, we definitely did dodgeball in gym class, but I
Those
also think
scooters were a gym
maybe
class
there was
thing.
dodgeball in indoor recess, but maybe not because dodgeball is honestly kind of dangerous. I remember I got pegged in the face by with a dodgeball thrown by the absolute hugest kid in my class in I think maybe like 3rd or 4th grade or something. I can't remember, but it was just
because
like,
you got a concussion.
oh man, I don't remember much at all, but it hurt. And everyone just was like screaming at me to go out. And I'm like, cause you get hit by it. You're supposed to go out. And I'm like standing there completely dazed because I just got
At our school, if you got hit in the
hammered.
face, you didn't have to leave.
maybe that was true of ours too, but
Maybe they just wanted you off the
that
field.
kid winged it and hit me square in the nose. Anyway, yeah, no, there's also just a lot of informal type stuff. We'd go adventuring around and we'd pretend we were astronauts and all kinds of stuff like that. I fell in the mud one year and completely drenched my cute little, I had this denim sunflower horrifying thing my mom had for me to wear, but I completely drenched it in mud because I tripped over one of those big railroad ties that you use to keep the pebbles in place and went down just flat into a huge pile of mud. So that happened. But yeah, no, recess. It was good times. And like I said, I wish it were still something that adults could participate in.
Yeah.
Because it's just a fun time.
It was my favorite thing.
Yeah. I don't know if you found this in your research, but at least in mine, I had a real hard time kind of tracking back.
If you mean if I found anything, the answer would be
I
no. I
found
did
a
not
hard
find
time
anything about the history
tracking
of recess.
anything about the history of recess as we know it as an institution. I found a couple of things. It was kind of funny because in one of the books that I read, the guy was talking about, there's no definitive history of recess that I know of. So here's some stuff that the book is called Recess. So I think the guy wrote the definitive history book of recess.
That is
but
the book he wrote.
But he actually said, in my research, I can't really find
it's the
anybody.
most primary test.
Yeah. He's like, I can't really find anybody writing on this thing as such. So, but play, the concept of play and education has been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
I didn't go much farther back than one of my favorites that actually got mentioned on the podcast a couple of times recently, because we had a fill in the blank question about it. But Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote a treatise on education called Emile, and the first couple of books of that book, Rousseau talks a whole lot about young children and what he calls the age of nature, and he talks about the physical side of education in that context, and he kind of compares them to small animals at that age, and he's like, they need to be free and don't put them in swaddling clothes because they need to thrash around and they need to go play outside and kind of explore and poke around and do things because
So be puppies.
yeah, children should be puppies.
I
But he
like
thinks
this
it's really, really important for them to go out and wander around kind of on their own in a very non-coddled way. So that's, if you want to go back as far as Rousseau, that's pretty interesting. If you want to fast forward a little bit into modern day recess chit chat, and again, this is from that book I was talking about. It's called Recess, Its Role in Education and Development, which was really the only kind of definitive study I could find on this thing. But people tend to talk about, or at least this book talked about, and I heard other references to this guy named G. Stanley Hall. He talked a lot about school. He talked a lot about developmental psychology and sort of adolescent, early childhood stuff. But he talked about school play and recess as sort of form of liberation for kids. And he kind of talked about play as an expression of individualism. Kids, it's talking about how kids use recess and to generate sort of cultures in response to what's happening in their classrooms. And like I even was talking about, there's a lot of creativity that can happen on the playground. Like kids can.
A lot of the stuff I was finding was like going to Montessori too.
Yeah, there's a lot of Montessori influence.
There's
here.
a lot of connections to that, which we did talk about with Montessori, but it does seem like that's
self-directed play,
right.
And that was kind of one of the things that got mentioned is like talking about recess as a place where a lot of creativity can happen. And I definitely do remember it making up new games or like
for sure.
variations of games. I mean, we came up with like a 2-square game for a while because we like only wanted to play with 2 of us, so we made our own rules for that. But it was like offshoot of 4-square. But yeah, we just kind of would adventure and imagine and play out scenarios in our heads
for sure.
You know, we're kind of private to only our friend groups, so it was kind of a way to build a sort of smaller social culture, you know, within your kindergarten class or elementary school class or whatever. So it's kind of an interesting thing, but there's a little bit of pushback on that notion sort of from the Marxist school around the same time, the kind of turn of the century stuff that looked at school play and recess as a controlling influence, which I thought was really interesting because I do not think of my own personal history with recess as that, but I can see where it's possible to think of it in that way. And here's what I found. So this view is more kind of like the school authorities try to control children's play as a way to socialize them to some ideal form, which is all well and good if you agree that that ideal form is the ideal form. But if you don't agree, then it might not be so good. So there's an example that I thought was pretty interesting. They brought up about this guy, and again, this is from that same book, but they were talking about this guy named Dom Cavallo. He sort of documents the history of the playground movement in the U.S., and he talks about the way in which the emergence of that movement corresponded to huge immigration waves in the early 20th century. So recess in this light kind of became a way to socialize good Americans, so minimizing the influence of parents on children. So we're talking about like large, you know, populations of Irish immigrants, of Italian immigrants, especially in some of these more urban school settings. Recess, and you know, when recess started, you used to hire people to come in and be like watchers for kids during recess and stuff. So there's kind of like a more authoritarian force there present to shape the way children interacted and socialized and did or didn't follow whatever rules were laid out during recess. And that was kind of a way to counteract. Yeah, it was kind of a way to counteract maybe what was going on at home a little bit, maybe to kind of make kids find a more, you know, whatever American expression of their play, whatever.
Don't even get me started.
So, yeah, no, I mean, again, I personally didn't, but again, I didn't experience recess at this time when there was a lot of, you know, huge waves of immigration happening in the United States. So I can see where that would be
had we
possible.
been alive, we probably wouldn't have been.
Yeah, we wouldn't have noticed it because we're already being socialized that way, honestly. So, but I did think that was kind of an interesting counterpoint in terms of, I mean, that's a pretty hefty philosophical load to drop at the doorstep of recess.
I know, I'm just imagining.
But I did think it was interesting, for sure. So that's a little bit about the kind of, I guess, the history of it. But like I said, it's not really, there's not a kind of immediately evident, clear history of the recess as we know it. But we do know now a little bit about the importance of it.
Yeah. So there's a 2014 study of more than 200 elementary students, and they found that their physical activity improved students' fitness and brain function, that enhanced their accuracy and reaction time and cognitive tasks. And other studies have concluded that children who have unstructured time during the school day exhibit greater creativity and problem-solving skills, like what you were talking about, and they're less disruptive and learn crucial social lessons like how to resolve disputes and form cooperative relationships. And that was all from an article from Edutopia that I'll link. But those are basically all the highlights of what we were talking about as well, as far as like what we learned of being on the, you know, being at recess, learning to play with people. How's your scotch?
I forgot I was wearing an enormous ring on my finger. And it's just like, all right.
But the study basically just supports everything that, you know, you and I were kind of noticing and realizing about our time on the playground. And maybe not in such a way that we would have ever noticed, but now as a teacher, I can look at it and be like, I wish these kids could go for a run and then come back because they would be so much
Yeah,
better.
absolutely.
So on average, this is from the Washington Post in 2015. This was the most recent I could find, though, unfortunately, on this data. On average, American elementary school kids get 27 minutes a day. Their Finnish peers get an average of
Finland.
75 minutes.
75.
Yeah, and in Japan, children get 10 to 15-minute breaks each hour.
my gosh, that's
in addition to a longer recess period, based on the idea that kids' attention spans begin to wane after a certain amount of intense instruction, which is true. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to make a quick plug here. I use TED Talks in my classroom, and TED Talks are anywhere between like 4 and 20-ish minutes. And I always try to aim for one that's somewhere between like 13 and 17 minutes, because there is data that suggests that students can only be engaged in a video that is about as many minutes long as they are old. So my kids are like 15 or 16, you know? So I try to keep, and that's why TED Talks are so beautiful and concise and things. And that's why they're especially built for education, is because of that, you know.
Does that say true as an adult?
No, because you have the attention span of a goldfish. So no.
Excuse
I would say
me.
yours has been going backwards.
I have focused on this podcast and this podcast only since I sat down to record it. And we've been recording for about half an hour so far.
Well, you're about maxed out. It's over.
I'm done now. Goodbye. I no longer have any focus. No, but this is what I was saying earlier. Like, I hope there are tons of studies out there that prove that the same thing is true of adults. Because, I mean, sitting in long meetings, sitting on long video conferences, adults cannot focus for long periods of time. Like, the brain just doesn't work that way.
So it's built to.
And it's also just not a bad thing to take a break. Like, it increases productivity. Everyone thinks, like, oh, productivity. This means you got to be focused for longer and huge stretches of time only being productive. And it's just like, well, in order to be productive, I need to give my brain a break sometimes. And this is true for, kids. Yeah. Anyway.
So the national guidance for recess, it has been created by the CDC. So the CDC recommends that all students K through 12 have at least 20 minutes of recess daily.
Wow, through 12?
Yeah, and so I'm assuming they mean like gym class, because many of our high schoolers are in gym class.
Well, read the next point, though.
Well, yes. Prohibit the replacement of phys ed with recess, so never mind.
Right, no, but
I take it all back.
No, but that's exactly right. What you were saying is that many schools are just like, oh, it's fine, they have gym.
Yeah.
And that's recess. And it's like, no, you're in gym class
for a grade.
Yeah. It's like, unfortunately, this is not a break where you get to socialize and do whatever you want and have imaginative play. It's like imaginative play. No, gym class is where you have to run laps and lift weights and whatever.
So the CDC recommends that obviously we provide schools and students with adequate space, facility, equipment, and supplies. And I actually remember, well, I guess this wasn't really for recess. Like, our teachers each had recess things that we took outside. So like a basketball would have our teacher's name on it.
Oh.
But I remember doing like fundraisers for our gym class. So we would like buy toys or something from some gym class just to help fund the gym class. I know it's not the same thing,
like,
but it's kind of in the same idea. And right. There isn't a lot of funding. So
equipment for recess and gym is expensive. So,
it is.
Especially for smaller school districts and rural ones. That's not that uncommon to have.
Well, and like I was saying, like the recess stuff, like most of it we carried in and out with us. You know what I mean? Like our teacher would have a box and it'd have a basketball and a football and whatever. Anyways, but there's one more thing that's costing teachers money, and okay. Maybe we should stop defunding education.
Whoa!
Okay. We should ensure that spaces and facilities for recess meet or exceed recommended safety standards. We should prohibit the exclusion of students from recess for disciplinary reasons or academic performance in the classroom. This is one of the biggest things that I learned in college was you do not take away gym time or recess time from students because they need it.
That's what we were talking about earlier. You and I both, I think, remember.
I think we'd actually talked about this in an episode as well.
Yeah, we talked about it with gym class, but recess also. And I can absolutely remember this happening. Either a whole class would be punished or a couple of kids would be punished and they would have recess taken away. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that's really just going to exacerbate whatever problem caused them to get in trouble in the first place. If you can't have a break in the middle of your day, if you look at it as a reward rather than as a necessary part of, if it's a reward, it can be taken away if you behave badly. But if it's a necessary part of your education, then you don't really want to take that away for bad behavior because it's something that can mitigate bad behavior.
They recommend that we provide recess before lunch, and they recommend that staff members are provided with ongoing professional development as far as leading and supervising recess as well.
Interesting. That's not something I ever would have thought of. PD for leading recess.
I would assume it's like, first aid kind of stuff.
Probably,
sometimes.
although I also would imagine that for younger ages, like younger grades, you might be more of a facilitator of some of that imaginative play and stuff. I mean, that's why I was saying, like, I collected rocks for my kindergarten teacher, and like I can remember doing it over and over again, because whatever it was she was saying to me was not like, why the heck are you giving me these rocks? It was like
supportive.
You're going on a treasure hunt, whatever it was. And it was just like, right. So whatever it was.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
So Edutopia, the article I mentioned earlier, also said that the American Academy of Pediatrics weighed in describing recess in 2012 in their policy statement as a necessary break in the day for optimizing a child's social, emotional, physical, and cognitive development that should not be withheld for punitive or academic reasons. But, of course, as so many things do, in the last 2 decades, as the federal No Child Left Behind Act and the Common Core are being ushered in, and these pushed our focus on standardized testing. And so because of this, schools responded to new security concerns and shrinking budgets, and recess was increasingly seen as dispensable. So even what you and I saw as recess time is probably different from what
because of NCLB and Common Core.
Yes.
Because
there's less time.
Yeah, people are like, oh, we need to change this into instructional time instead of playtime. Because cramming more and more minutes of instruction into the day is what's going to help us score better on the tests. OMG, the tests.
Well, I guess the good news is that there are some states who are now trying to reverse that course. So at least 5 have a recess law in the books. So Missouri, Florida, New Jersey, and Rhode Island mandate 20 minutes of recess daily for elementary students, while Arizona requires 2 recess periods without specifying a length. So we've only got 45 more to go. Great. We've got 7 more that require between 20 and 30 minutes of daily physical activity for elementary schools, leaving up to schools how to allocate the time.
This must be really recent, because some of the research I saw was from maybe like the mid 2000s or like maybe just after like maybe 2010-ish. And they were talking about how almost no states required recess at the state level. So this must be even since then.
There is a website that shows you state by state what if they do have something mandated or not, and I'll include that. In addition, legislators in Connecticut actually proposed a bill to increase the state's time commitment to 50 minutes. So
that's a lot. That's significant.
That would be great. But in an 8-hour day, these kids deserve to go run around. So in a push to emphasize the core subjects, 20% of school districts reduced that recess time between 2001 and 2006.
Okay, so that's right after
that is
NCLB.
Yes. And that research came from a study by the Center of Education Policy, GWU. And by 2006, the CDC had concluded that 1/3 of elementary schools did not offer daily recess for any grade. So we were 16.
So sad.
So that's like, we were maybe in the heyday. We didn't know it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to end on a bad note, but I feel like it kind of is. But I think the most important thing to take away from this is that it is important. It is crucial. It's just as valid as any learning in the classroom, especially for younger kids. So if you're in a state that doesn't have a set required, maybe write to your local officials, write to your school boards, do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we need to be able to support kids, and this is one way to do it.
I think people probably have no idea. Like,
Yeah,
I would bet that the average parent in our school district would have no idea of the effect that No Child Left Behind and Common Core and testing have had on stuff in a variety of ways, but especially in terms of talking about recess. I would bet that everybody just assumes that obviously everybody has recess when you're a kid at school.
We would never have to think about it.
Yeah,
it's a given.
Because to me, it was such an important part of my day.
Oh, yeah.
And forming friendships and all kinds of stuff that I wouldn't have even thought twice had I not, become interested professionally in education. Sure. But other than that, I don't think it would have struck me as something that you could possibly take away. Like, how dare you take away recess? Yeah.
But we just need to be. Everyone. We should be an advocate for these kids who need it.
Yeah,
especially.
Maybe join your PTA and just ask some questions, and don't beat up on teachers about this, because it's almost always, it's almost never their decision or their fault. It's almost always at a state or district level that this stuff gets just sort of kicked out of the schedule to make way for testing. Sure. So push back on your state departments of education. Go elect your school board members, state school board members.
We gotta go vote anyways.
I know they're on the ballot right now. I was just researching state school board members to vote for. So, keep it in mind. Go look up ask them questions about this stuff, see what people have to say about this, see what they value. But, at least just ask questions and know if your kid has that opportunity or not. Don't assume.
Yeah, I think it's really important for kids to have this time. So if you've never thought about it, as far as like what do the numbers look like, it's probably worth asking someone who has a kid in school, or if you've got one. But also just make sure that you're supporting your local schools in all kinds of ways, because by helping to fund them and do all that kind of stuff, we're making sure that they have what it takes to provide these important learning opportunities, and recess is one of them.
Yep.
All right,
are we moving on?
Last week's question.
Ooh, fill in the blank.
You want to do it?
No, I think you should do it. This is very you.
Okay. Last week's question. In 1972, the future notorious RBG was the first woman hired with tenure at this New York School of Law.
Bader Ginsburg?
Yep.
Okay. What was it?
The Queen of Queens. It was Columbia.
Columbia University.
The first
Blue
woman
Lions
hired with tenure in 1972.
Yeah, it's really upsetting.
It's sad, but it's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm like, of course it's you, but it still stinks.
Yeah.
Anyways. Okay. This week?
Yes, so this week, yesterday was, when we're recording this, yesterday was October 12th, which is sometimes called Columbus Day, and sometimes called Indigenous Peoples Day, and sometimes people don't even know what day it is, so they just ignore the day, but,
which I respect.
Yeah, so it's a day where historically the U.S. has celebrated Columbus discovering North America, or the Americas, which he did not. So, who actually...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Who actually discovered North America 500 years at least prior to Columbus claiming to have found it in 1492? Who actually discovered North America? Who wasn't already here, just to be absolutely clear.
Yeah, let's be clear. There were already
who from over
plenty
there,
of people here.
Who from over there discovered over here? That's
and wrote about it and sent home about it.
Yeah, who sent home about discovering here? Even though there were already people here.
Yeah, no one discovered it. They were already here. But this guy shows up and definitely was here before Columbus. That's the point.
Yes.
Christopher Columbus, why did we name our beautiful city after you?
Yep. Okay.
I mean, for people who really know Columbus, know that back in the day, there used to be a version of the Santa Maria that sat on the Scioto River. You could go tour. Not all three of them, but Santa Maria was there. So, anyway, what'd you learn this week?
Oh, I learned something really cool. Okay, so I was talking about Scotch earlier.
For this at the end of it also, so I appreciate that.
There's gonna be a general call to action for our listeners, but here's what I learned about this week. I just found this article about a funding ground for this company called Bespoken Spirits, which is the hipsteriest sounding thing I've ever, they need a better name.
As soon as I read it, I think I clicked out.
The name makes me mad.
I closed the tab.
The name makes me mad, so they need a better name. However,
Bespoken.
So one of my interests and kind of geeky obsessions is machine learning. So it's kind of just various weird applications to life. There are some kind of evil applications to life that people in the machine learning world are discovering, like when they use sample data that maybe ignores black people or something like that, which is a thing that happens a lot in the big data world. It's just let's train our algorithms and forget to include non-white people in our training data. So that is a thing that happens, which but anyway, so some of the more innocuous applications of machine learning tend to upend traditional industries in interesting ways. And this one that I found, this Bespoken Spirits company, and maybe there are others, but this is the one I found, is upending the spirits aging, whiskey aging, and other spirits aging industry. So they've used machine learning somehow. It's kind of magical to me how this might have worked, but they've used machine learning to kind of analyze aroma, color, and taste profiles. And what they do is produce, without a really long aging process and without consuming the wood that the traditional whiskey aging process consumes. They've figured out a way to make small batch spirits for people using machine learning. And it
serious?
just sounds so
Pappy's
cool.
is done for.
I know, that's the thing. It's like, so all of this hype
Jack,
around
all of
I
them,
mean,
Jim, they're done.
I will say that in the spirits world, there's been pushback against traditional aging process, even from some of the big distillers, because people are like, well, okay, an age statement, like this whiskey that I'm drinking right now has it's 14 years aged. So
It'll be like
even-
6 weeks.
well, that's the thing. No, really, like weeks is what this company can do. But like even the big whiskey distillers now are saying like an age statement does not necessarily indicate quality. So people go after coveted, they're like 20 years, 40 year, whatever, 21 year, whatever it is. They think that that's more prestigious, but it doesn't necessarily make for
Translate
a
that well.
better whiskey. And that's what big distillers are trying to
I
say
hope
because
wine figures this out.
that's what I'm wondering is if this could be extended to wine. I really don't know because I think the
Napa would
process-
just be.
well, I think
a
the process
disaster.
there is a little bit different because
It's actually the fermentation.
yeah, you
that
actually have to
occurs,
ferment. It's just grape juice without it fermentation.
It's not
So
just grape juice.
I mean, no,
It's gonna
without-
grow up and be wine
no,
someday.
without fermentation.
No.
So
Yeah. Okay. Skip that.
So I'm
Just
not
stick
exactly
to the
sure.
whiskey.
I'm not exactly sure of the whiskey aging process versus like wine production process, but I was interested in looking up a little bit more about that. But yeah, this company is somehow able to extract elements of whiskey barrels that enhance aroma, color, and taste, but they do it really fast. They make small batches. They do
That
like
could really tank a lot
custom. They do custom white labels, so like you can be a really fancy restaurant and just call up and be like, I want to have a small batch of a custom whiskey that is just for my restaurant. Please include this, and this. I like this flavor profile, and I just
Okay. Oh, that's kind of
it's
smart.
speaking directly to me. But here's the thing:
Mm-hmm.
if anyone out there wants to send me some bottles
Can you not get it?
of this bespoke spirits, so they sell it directly. That's one thing they do. They sell it directly. They mature spirits for other people, and then they do small batch stuff for like restaurants and whatever. And blah, blah, blah. So there's like the three ways to make money. So you can just buy it directly from them. So if someone out there wants to, enable me to do some research on this, because I'm not 100% willing to believe that it's a miracle company until I taste it and taste whether or
Just
not
buy
it tastes like
yourself
trash.
one.
I know, but it'd be so much
Oh, let's
more
get
special.
one, and I'll pour you some of the old stuff and some of that stuff, and we'll see if you even know.
I will. Listeners, I will.
Well, then it's a broken company, and it doesn't matter.
I mean, that would be a really fun test, though, to see if they can make something that supposedly tastes like one of my favorite whiskeys.
Well, anyways.
Yeah, I know. I am
pretty cool.
sounding very ridiculous right now, but I love whiskey. What can I say? So, yeah, it is really cool. I'm excited. I want to try it. I want to know what it tastes like. What did you learn this week?
We really went two different directions this week.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have gone.
But
first.
didn't I send you this news story?
You did, and I clicked on it, and I didn't know what it was.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
This week, Mark Zuckerberg did something right.
That's big news.
This is important.
I mean, that's news.
because
right
it's
there.
rarely made and done correctly.
Okay, what do you do?
Okay. I know that this is going to surprise you, but Facebook has finally, August of 2020, has banned Holocaust denial content from their website. Thoughts? They let it happen.
Doesn't it seem
for
like
this
pretty
long.
obvious that if you have like a hate speech policy, that something like
No,
Holocaust
and I'll
denial-
tell you why. Zuckerberg is Jewish.
Oh, okay.
And he was quoted saying 2 years ago, quote, I don't believe that our platform should take that down, talking about denial stuff,
Holocaust denial.
because I think there are things that different people get wrong. I don't think that they're intentionally getting it wrong, end quote.
what?
So the next line I can't include because it was just for you to read.
You just
But-
put swear words in the notes for
Yeah,
us.
okay.
Yeah.
But he just recently was quoted saying, so 2 years ago when there was a push for this is what he said. He essentially, this is even worse, I think, than just letting it happen is the worst thing, right? Don't get me started. But believing that they're not intentionally getting it wrong is just enabling it.
Yeah. It's not.
And it's allowing them to be like, oh, I didn't know.
It's a difference between a mistake and misinformation.
It's
Like
it's
misinformation is probably the number one problem of social media in this era, but misinformation. So like denying the Holocaust is not just like a freedom of expression issue. It's a misinformation issue that I think is like what I'm saying one would think it would be on par with hate speech.
And they had a thing, and that's my next quote. But the next quote says, this is the one he just released. He posted it on Facebook. Quote, "My own thinking has evolved as I've seen data showing an increase in anti-Semitic violence as have our wider policies on hate speech."
Oh, okay.
So they've brought in those, but before it apparently wasn't broad enough to be like, you know what's real? The Holocaust. I have so many freaking questions. Gosh.
I can understand where somebody might look at that and think that's just freedom of expression, but like it's not
damaging.
Yeah, that's the problem is like, okay, you can think what you want to think and say what you want to say, but if you have a hate speech policies are designed to protect against targeting.
They've basically
groups,
been built
right?
with anti-Semitic violence in their brain.
Yeah, right.
Like
They exist to protect protected groups from speech that is exactly like this kind of stuff. That, you know, I just that is kind of baffling to me that it took them that long to get there.
Yeah.
But I mean,
well, the last of what I learned. Now I'm sad again. The last bit is that this should have happened years ago, and I guess I appreciate his effort to respect free speech. But Holocaust denial is not that. So, whatever. He finally got it
free
right.
Speech is not free speech.
Yay, Mark.
It is
I
not
guess,
free speech
for the moment, until I remember you just made more money just in the last time it took me to tell you this that I'll make in my entire life. But other than that, yay, Facebook. Be an upstander, not a bystander.
Yep, for sure. Anything else?
Smash the patriarchy.
Okay.
Go vote.
Go vote.
Go vote. Go
Yep.
freaking vote. Go
Yep.
go get in line early if you live in a place where you gotta, which is not right.
Make
but
a plan.
take some snacks.
Give us a call. We'll drive you to early voting.
A
as
treat.
long as you're close
If you're in
by.
Ohio, we'll deliver you to that place.
Yep.
If you're in Georgia, go now and wait forever with snacks. Send me your address and I'll send you a pizza. But go do it.
Yep.
Anything else?
Black lives still matter.
You said it. Yay.
That was my turn.
Wait, well, what's today's date? Sorry. When's our next episode coming out? The 29th. Okay, we'll get one more week of pro voting.
Okay.
Spooky season.
Happy spooky time.
Everyone go watch Hocus Pocus and just like let your brain disconnect from Facebook for a minute. I smell children. I smell children. See you guys next week.
Bye. Listeners, thanks for supporting 16 to 1.
We're trying to grow our audience, so please check us out at 16to1.com, all spelled out, and tell your friends about the show.
On our website, you can find links to follow us on social media, an archive of all our old episodes, and a contact form where you can get in touch.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next show. We should always want to punch Nazis.